Have you heard of the CAPF 60-83? Well, if you have not, then no worries. I am here to explain what it is. So, essentially, I'm going to talk about putting together your weekly squadron agenda, and if you want to, you can utilize the CAP Form 60-83, which is just kind of a weekly meeting planner document, and I will link it down below. So here are a few tips and tricks that I have learned when putting together an agenda, and I hope that if you have any additional ideas or suggestions, feedback, thoughts, just leave them in the comments down below. I always read your comments, and I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. One other small thing that I would like to mention before this video is that I do have a Discord server and that it's open to anyone who's interested in joining. Now, I don't have it specifically for Civil Air Patrol people, but we do talk about CAP stuff and we do have a few CAP memes here and there. So if you're interested in joining the Redberryweo Discord server, then feel free to join us, and I will also link that down below. I hope the link works. I accidentally sent the wrong link last time, and boy, was that not great. But I'm sorry. So, hopefully the right link will be in there. So before talking about the weekly agenda, let's talk about the overall hourly requirements that cadets are supposed to receive in a month that's listed out in CAP Regulation 60-1, which is the overall cadet programs regulation. For leadership and aerospace education, there's a requirement to have 1.5 hours of each of those within a month, and 1 hour of character development, and 1 hour of fitness. Now, if you want to spread those out over the course of several weeks, you can spread out the different materials between the meetings. Like, you could even, I just did a funny flip with my danglies here. If you wanted to, you could break off the leadership training into 2 separate 45-minute sessions, and you could do the same thing with aerospace education. However you want to split up those hours is entirely up to you, but it's something to consider when you're putting together your weekly agenda. Quite a few units that I know, they have like this sort of battle rhythm where like the first week of the month you do aerospace education. The second week of the month you do leadership. The third week of the month you do fitness. And then the fourth week you might do character development. Now, I did not mention emergency services. Why is that? In the regulation, CAP Regulation 60-1, it does not include emergency services. So if you wanted to, you could sprinkle emergency services into one of those other meetings. Like, let's say you wanted to do aerospace education and leadership during one meeting, then you could do an hour block of each of those, and then the following week, you could do emergency services. It's just not something that you're required to do. So if it's a shorter month, like let's say it's the end of the year, it's December, you're going to do a holiday party, you still want to meet contact hours, you don't have to have an ES block. And then there's also keeping in mind that every month you should have at least one weekend activity, with the exceptions of November and December, according to the Regulation 60-1, just so that members have the opportunity to attend things outside of their unit meetings. So something that I've tried doing is doing at least once a month an emergency services exercise where members are invited to come attend, and we go to the forest and we meet for a couple of hours and we do a few sorties where they might do a litter carry, they might do an orientation course of some kind where, well, like an orienteering, I should say, an orienteering course with the compass, and they do pace count, and they learn their pace count first, and then they try to meet each of the locations that are set up ahead of time. Or doing a search line and setting stuff up in the forest. Or a practice ELT, where they bring the Elper and they try to figure out where it's located. But that's going a little bit outside of just that weekly planning. So whenever you have that planning, it's very useful and it's highly recommended that units have some kind of web-based calendar. So if your squadron has a website or a Facebook page, putting those important dates of when your meetings are, what the dates and times are, and any additional events are important for people in your unit to be able to access. Now, if you don't want the entire internet knowing you're doing this emergency services activity at X Pond, then you can always keep that more internal, where, like, if you're using Microsoft Teams, then only the people who have been invited to see that event will be able to see it. And another important note is that if you are doing special activities, aside from like really, really small things, it's important to announce them at least 2 weeks in advance to give families enough time to just figure out what their plans are and be able to schedule accordingly. So let's talk about some of those practices that I was talking about at the beginning, involving weekly planning. For some units, some of them find that they like to have a separate meeting outside of their weekly meetings where they take the command team, which includes the cadets and senior members involved, and have them all sit together and talk about the upcoming agendas. This could be once a week, this could be once every other week, depending on what the availability of the team members are, determines how frequently you can be meeting to discuss that agenda. My suggestion is to have the long-term vision of what kind of things do we want to accomplish over these next few months, and then evaluating, okay, so we're going to have these different focuses and be able to grow our cadets to this point, like at the end of a year or at the end of 3 years. So, for example, if you're trying to start up a Great Start Academy of some kind, where brand new cadets who are Cadet Airman Basic, they first come in and they are going to get to their Curry achievement by the end of that program. It's over the course of several weeks of meetings, and it's a good set of curriculum that teaches them how to wear a uniform, the basics of drill and ceremonies, customs and courtesies, and other essential skills that will help transition them into cadet life. But let's say right now you're starting that program and you foresee it potentially having like 20 cadets. You're just always coming into that flight of the Great Start flight in 2 years. What steps are you going to take in those weekly agendas that will help lead to that point? And working with the cadet staff when developing that agenda is super empowering. I've seen units on one end of the spectrum where the cadets are entirely responsible for their schedule. They put together the blocks, they put together the instructors, they coordinate, and then they say, hey, unit commander, please approve this agenda, and the commander's just like, yep, okay, good to go. I've seen some units where the senior members put together the agenda, and then they say, cadets, here's your agenda, and here's everything that's happening this upcoming week. While both are different methods, it depends on what you would like your cadets to get out of the program. For me, when I was a senior cadet, I felt most empowered when I felt like I was a trusted team member who had some ownership over the stuff that was going on in the unit, especially as a cadet commander. Being able to tell the unit commander and brief them on what I would like to accomplish with my team and the different priorities that the flight commanders have presented and saying these are what our cadets are interested in, helped to provide a more engaging environment that the cadets were excited to come to. And I've seen with some of those units that the senior members are more overly involved, that those senior cadets are more of just carrying out the agenda as opposed to actively putting it together and feeling like they are invested in the success of that agenda because it's their agenda and not someone else's. But that's just some of my thoughts. If your unit does it in a different way, please. I would love to discuss some of your thoughts and how you think of that down in the comments below. In the form CAP, Form 60-83, talks about some of the staff coordination towards the beginning of the page, and then it goes through like the opening formation process. Most units have an opening formation of some kind where the cadets fall into the formation, the senior members fall into the formation, whether that be indoors or outdoors, can depend on the time of year or the kind of facility that you're using, and the process for that, and then going into what your time blocks are. So the suggestion is that you have one time block for one specific thing, and then you have a second time block for another thing, and depending on when you start and stop, can determine what each of those will take. Like if you have a squadron of 5, your opening formation will not take super long. But if you've got 200 members who are actively attending meetings, then it's going to take a little bit longer because people are kind of mingling, and then you have to get people organized, and it can take a little bit more time. So I recommend adjusting your agenda accordingly and allowing for some time for breaks and for transitioning into the next class. Like if you do have 100 cadets attending a meeting, breaking them off into different classrooms will take more time than 10 cadets who are just all shuffling into one room at the same time. Now, at the beginning of the meeting, a best practice is to always discuss an overview of what everyone's doing. Like, for example, maybe Captain Mario is putting together a aerospace education lesson for us tonight where you'll be doing Goddard rockets, or have Captain Mario talk about, we're doing Goddard rockets tonight, guys. Get excited. We're using rubber bands and foam. It'll be good. Let's go. I don't know. But getting people excited about the agenda, in addition to talking about upcoming events. So if you're doing a special activity within the next 2 weeks, making sure that's mentioned. Not only in email, but also in person. And then at the end, reminding people of those upcoming activities and the process for signing up for those, any promotions that you may have, in addition to potentially like sign-ups or other announcements that might be pertaining to stuff that you're doing soon. It's good to discuss at the end, and then have like those sign-up sheets if there's a paper version, or maybe have a laptop available for people to quickly sign into and just like put in their form. Then that's another approach that you can take. One quick thing that I'm going to mention about this is that the weekly planner is not a requirement. It is an optional tool that you can use. So please do not feel like you are required to use it, but it is available if you just want a reference, or if you don't have something put together yet. Just wanted to mention that. Another suggestion that you can take under consideration is think about how you want to involve parents who might be sitting in on the meeting. Some units I've seen, they set up chairs and they have this whole process of greeting parents and letting them see opening formation. They have parent classes that talk about the different aspects of cadet life that they can expect their brand new cadet to be involved with, or if they have a prospective cadet that's just kind of sitting in on the meeting to see what CAP is, then giving them an overview of what Civil Air Patrol's cadet program is. And that's another thing to do. In some units, they don't say anything to parents when they come in. The parents just drop off their kid, and then they go back home. That's when you invite them and suggest that they could consider being a cadet sponsor member. And if you don't know what a cadet sponsor member is, I've got a little thing linked in the iCard, but just as a quick summary, a cadet sponsor member can serve as the 2 deep leadership, like the second adult member, when you have activities. They can also drive a CAP van. If you're just a parent, if you're a parent who does not have that cadet sponsor membership, then you can't serve as a second senior member. You can't drive the CAP vehicle and get your CAP driver's license. So if you're already going to be supporting your cadet in all of those endeavors, why not consider being a cadet sponsor member? And that's a great way to bring in senior members who are committed to the program. So I know I've gone off on a few different little tangents here, but the overall summary is look at what your long-term plan is with your unit. What sort of things do you as a team want to accomplish? And how can you take that weekly agenda and fit that into that long-term plan? Because people want to feel like they're working towards something and not just kind of like on this hamster wheel working and churning out something each week. So consider building up the curriculum over the course of several weeks and really helping those cadets and those senior members work towards something. Now, there isn't a requirement for senior member contact hours, but it's useful to think of the different areas that the senior members are interested in and providing them those opportunities to learn with hands-on activities, while also balancing that time that they have, because they're volunteering their time and feeling like they are invested in and important to the success of the unit. So, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, doodles.